Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, where we uncover the stories, secrets, and power plays shaping the real estate industry. Big opinions, tough conversations, and the truths others won't touch.
Well, g'day everyone, it's Liam here. Now, if you're starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed with your compliance to-do list and a little bit irritated with everything that's coming through the pipeline to make sure that you are compliant, well, I have a solution for you. It's Visible. VISIBL, an end-to-end compliance platform that's been built specifically for Aussie real estate. Visible makes it simple to get your agency compliant. So whether it's minimizing paperwork headache or handling AUSTRAC enrollment, risk assessment and policy, customer verifications, team training, and more, it's a platform built for the industry and built to actually make compliance simple. Check out Visible at visibl.com.au. Well, g'day everyone, it's Liam, Garman and Emilie Lauer, the team behind Real Estate Business, back today with episode 2 of Real Estate Exposed. That's the name we settled on, isn't it? Real Estate Exposed.
I love it.
It's pretty good because, you know, we gave a little bit of background last week, but I'll just do a quick recap. What we're doing here is gloves off. It's gloves off real estate because everyone is so sanitized in this industry. Everyone is so sanitized. You know, everyone in real estate's got their own podcast. There's thousands of podcasts in real estate, and you see all the agents and especially buyers agents have got their own potties, and they're all there, and they're all like, "Yeah, that's a great question, Emily," and everything's so sanitized. But what we do is we're going to take the gloves off. We're going to talk about things that actually matter to people. We're going to go in depth with things that are controversial. We're going to talk about what's making the headlines. We're going to talk about what, you know, CAB in Victoria does or Fair Trading's doing in New South Wales. We're going to shine a spotlight on this for the betterment of the industry, so we can all upskill, we can all improve. But episode 2, and you and I started this last week, and in the last 7 days, mate, what's this story I'm seeing? 11 properties, Victorian agency to face court for serious underquoting. It's pretty big.
It is. So CAB down in Victoria has been putting the foot on the pedal for underquoting. Look, they're sending the inspector, the task force, every weekend. Yeah. So every weekend, if you're an agent in Vic, expect
the task force is going to be there. Yeah, hell yeah.
Undercover. Yeah. You know, spying on you. Expect it.
Do you know how they operate? Like, are they?
I don't know, and I think it's quite. I don't know. I should maybe I'll. You know what? I'll ask Cav. I'll tell you that next week.
Okay, good.
I'll
probably won't tell you. They're not going to be like, you know, we rock up plain clothes. Like.
But I still want to know now.
Yeah.
And look, if I get an answer, I get an answer. Yeah. If I don't, at least we know that, you know, they're on full incognito mode.
For sure.
So look, there's been how do I put this one? Look, there's been a lot of underquoting going down in Victoria, and the task force has been like really looking at nailing those agents. And basically, I think like about a week and a half ago, like we had a massive fail for some agent with 11 property being underquoted. And they basically are allegedly, you know, CAV is saying they allegedly like acted deceptively during the sale campaign as well. Yeah. So they basically allegedly misled, misled buyers by basically manipulating the estimate selling price. Typical online blind pricing. But also, you know, like they used it as a sales tactic with the kicker incentive.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they made it on purpose lower for then selling it higher and get more commission.
Okay, let's start all of this again, by the way.
Why?
Let's move quicker.
Okay.
Let's move quicker. Okay, so...
Do I say allegedly or not?
Yeah, say allegedly, of course. So, boom, underquoting, incentive kick is the big one, and then we can move through.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so 7 days since our last podcast, and in the last 7 days, there was a pretty big story that came out. A Victorian agent, 11 cases of alleged underquoting. Take us away. What's happening down there?
Well, the CAV task force is on full mode at the moment down in Victoria. So they are out every weekend checking auctions, they're checking listings, they're checking every agents in the city just to make sure that they are not breaching any laws. So what they found was that there's 3 agents that allegedly underquoted 11 property and used incentive kickers. So just put the price a lot down, used it as a sales tactic, and then secured the kicker commission.
That's insane. Do we have the figure for the kicker?
Yeah, so commission up to 5 times the base rate of a property, with some homes selling as much as 60% above the advertised range.
60?
60%.
Oh, look, this is so dumb. Like, this is so dumb. And I as in dumb that an agent would do this, because that is, we speak about it all the time where you've got that, and it's just a bit of a rule of thumb, but that rule of thumb with a 10% more or less leeway that, okay, there's obviously, there's going to be a day where you're going to have a really motivated buyer and it might go for higher. You're not necessarily underquoting then. There are going to be days where, like Tom Panos has said on some of his videos, you get 0 registered bidders if you're going to auction, for example. That's going to happen as well. I mean, 60% is such a ridiculous figure that, of course, you're going to be found out. Allegedly. Of course. And I don't know the people that we're talking about. In the case of this, I haven't actually read the article. I've only skimmed the headline, but at 60%, of course, you're going to be found out. And to your point, not only will the data tell a story, the data is obviously going to tell a story that you've got a very motivated state government down there that is very motivated to go after whether it's property investors or homeowners. They're going to look through the data, but that's not the only thing motivating them. They're rocking up. They are going, we can only assume, plain clothes, checking this out. We hear stories all the time, especially on the property management side and the investing side, about how many people are going to open to inspect, to see whether you're compliant or not. And CAV potentially flogging you with a 14K, a 14K fine. Like, this is real. Do you really think that if you're underquoting that severely, allegedly, to everyone, I know I've got to say it, but that you're not going to get caught? Do you think you're not going to get caught?
Look, I think at this point, in this day and age, I'm sorry, but do your job properly,
100%.
Allegedly.
Yeah. The other part to this is, and like, sorry to go on a rant, but the other part to this is, I've heard some horror stories through parts of Melbourne that despite, Melbourne's actually quite an affordable market, but, you're still getting price drops in a lot of areas. I've spoken to a lot of BAs that, look across the entire city, and there are places, I think in the probably outer east ring, where people have dropped asking prices by about 50K in the last few months, from like 800 to 750. These are massive drops. You're not getting this influx of buyers, right? You've got investors that are sitting on the sidelines. You've got buyers that have reduced borrowing capacity as a result of 3 interest rate rises. Do you really think that it is worth your while annoying your limited pool of buyers by underquoting, by putting up, because this isn't like a victimless crime. You and I have spoken to a lot of victims of underquoting in the past, where, they go to 2 or 3 auctions and they end up doing, dropping 500 to $1,000 on, building a pest, depending on where you are, right? And they were never in the running for any of them. Mate, that guy is not going to trust you anymore. And in an era where it is very hard to get motivated buyers for your listings, why would you annoy them?
I'm going to give you more. Like, apparently, CAV said that allegedly those agents kept the price guides of those houses at a lower point despite receiving higher offer from prospective buyers.
Wow.
So they engaged in allegedly deceptive during deceptive
Insane.
tactics.
Yeah.
Just a heads up, like according to the Australian consumer law, false or misleading statement relating to land can attract penalties up to 2.5 million for individuals and 50 million for company. Those 3 agents are still operating.
Oh, insane.
They've changed network, but they're still operating. I'm not gonna say whom. Like, just do your own Google.
Yeah, that's you know, I don't understand in this market why you would play such short-term games, because man, like if your name's there, buyers are going to think twice. You know, if you've screwed them over in a few negotiations, they're not going to come back. In the Melbourne market, are you really that flush with buyers at the moment?
Also, your name is on this. Your name is out there. You know,
Now
like
it is, right?
people will report on
Yeah.
you. It's been picked up by all the big mastheads,
Yeah.
by us and by
Yeah.
the others. Like,
So now, not only do you not have buyers that
You
trust
don't
you, you're not going to get the vendors.
no, you don't get nothing.
Insane. But it's not the only big scoop this week. Not only the big news. Court awards $1 million in damages. Bit of a defamation case. Now, this is a hard one. You know, I was talking to Josh Altman ahead of ARIC this year, and thanks to the team at McGrath for organising that chat. It was really good, and Josh was a huge gentleman. Like, he was an absolute gentleman, really nice guy. Gave you so much of his time. Gloves off. He's a really good human being at his core. And one thing that he said, which separates good agents from bad, it's not just selling your own property, but knowing how to sell against the others. And it's at the end of the day, you have to know that, let's say you've got a husband and wife that are looking for 2-bedroom places in Neutral Bay. You kind of got to know the other listings in your area. You got to know what you're going to be competing with. You got to know what you're going to be competing with, so you can preemptively say, "Oh, I mean, gosh, like they're rocking up with a pram." Yeah, well, a lot of the other listings have stairs. You know, knowing that they've all got stairs. Obviously, a very bastardized version of it, but you need to know your market to know how to sell against it. Obviously, people take that to the extreme. I've heard stories of people vandalizing each other's signboards. There were stories of people stealing each other's signboards. So, Em, what's going on? $1 million defamation suit. It ain't small.
All right. So this one is a little bit different, and it's all about communities, I would say, put it that way. So we've got 2 agents from one real estate company, and then another agent that is from not really on another company, on his own, but that runs a Facebook group.
Wow. Okay. So you can tell how, for all of our listeners at home, you can tell how particular Emily's being with this. We're trying not to name names.
I'm trying not to name names,
so
but also
2 agents with a network.
2 agents with a network.
A third with a Facebook group.
A third with a Facebook
Who
group.
does his own stuff.
Or does their own stuff.
Okay.
Exactly.
Cool. Or does their own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So the agent with the Facebook group had an agreement with the other 2 to post some of their listing on that Facebook group.
Okay.
Now, bear in mind that they are part of a community that relies a lot on word of mouth and reference. And
so we're talking about New Australians here? Like, what
they're
type
Australians,
of community are we talking
they're Thai community.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Which relates a lot on word of mouth and referrals from other people that use
like a trust-based community.
100% trust-based.
Yeah.
So they used to have an agreement like this where the Facebook agent used to get some referral fees when the buyers would come from their Facebook page.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of. And came to a point where that Facebook agents wanted to have the referral fee before the settlement happened, which
controversial. Okay.
they were not entitled to. And when the other 2 agents said, no, you're going to have to wait, that agent, went on a rampage and basically started. I mean, you can go and read the piece on REB. There's all the names.
Yeah, but part of the fun's the storytelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they went on a rampage and be like, oh, they're unethical agents, they're cheating the clients, and basically went on bad-mouthing those 2 network agents, Now, bear in mind, the Thai community is a trust community with a lot of word of mouth.
Yeah.
So they basically estimated that they had a 70% drop in business and loss of income due to the bad 70. And they proved that to court, which meant that's why they got 1 million in damages.
So they were actually awarded $1 million.
Court awarding more than 1 million in damages. So it's still pretty much ongoing for the details on who's going to pay the money and everything else.
Yeah.
But they did settle that they were defamed.
Wow.
So it's quite an interesting one. And I have to say, like, the writing of that one took us a lot of time because we had to go through all the court papers.
Well, you also don't want to double defame, do you?
100%.
Yeah.
So they just shush.
I mean, there's someone that's $1 million poorer now, so they'd be looking at every...
Well, all of this for like getting your fees, your referral fees in advance. Like, be patient. You're getting referral fees.
70% drop is not a small amount.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's
so,
huge.
I mean, like, a good thing to think about. Good thing to think about whenever your competition gets a little bit too fiery.
Oof.
It's a little bit too fiery. Now, we're going to do one thing that I want to add to these podcasts. Now, it's our second week of doing this, so we're still ironing out. So anyone who's listening at home, in the office, the radio, the car, as you're driving to your listings, if you have any feedback, let us know. Liam.Garman, Garman @momentummmedia.com.au. Reach out and have a chat. But one thing that we're going to add is I want to do a video reaction because it's a bit of fun.
It's
a bit of fun. We're going to chuck up videos and Em and I are going to dissect them. So even if you have any videos, there's no shortage of people doing interesting stuff.
99% of people have met their repayments or are ahead on their mortgages, which means they can't be in negative equity because they're ahead.
This guy gets a gold medal for the dumbest guy in the Goose government, and that's really saying something. He thinks, this minister, that negative equity is when you're paying off your loan. Negative equity is when your loan's worth more than your house. And there's a lot of people in Australia right now who are feeling that because of Labor's hopeless housing policies.
Yeah. I thought that would be a good one, Em, to start on. Because, and look, I'm not going to make this political, but I will make it opinionated. I think it's a good one to start on. We had the Assistant Immigration Minister come out this week saying that Australians are not in negative equity because 99% of people are making their mortgage repayments on time. Now, I'm not even sure it's 99%, but let's take him at face value. 99% are making it on time, but that is not the definition of negative equity. This is who is governing us, right? These are the people around the tables that are making the decisions that are impacting the livelihoods of 28 million people in this country, from the oldest to the youngest, that are deciding our financial future, that had their fingers on the levers of policy, which will determine whether we are going to be a productive society, where we have the ability to eat, where we have the ability to have energy, whether we have the ability to grow old and prosperous and have nice things and grow as a nation, or the exact opposite. They also have the ability to drive us into debt. They have the ability to make us poorer and dumber. And it makes me extremely worried. And the thing is, I don't want to be political on these podcasts, but it is an incredibly worrying thing that this is the umpteenth instance where Labor ministers have just actually not understood real basic terms. Now, I hate when people go out there and say, "Oh, you don't understand basic economics." Like, people use it as a kind of as a pat down of, Econ 101, you failed. Like, I mean, it is true in this instance.
He's on power. Like, he's governing us. That's at the end of the day, you should know what you're talking about. And
we have been on this show, Em used to run First Property Buyer show as well. Obviously, we do smart property investment. And we've been out here since October last year when the federal government came out and announced the 5% deposit scheme. Since that point, we warned. We were, shouting till we were blue in the face the risks of negative equity. Now, obviously, our audience here knows about it, but I'll just give a quick recap of what we were concerned about back in October. One thing we were concerned about then is, let's take Sydney, for example. Where realistically, with a $1.5 million first home buyer scheme cap, you're buying units. you're buying units. They're not necessarily assets where you're going to make a whole heap of cash. They're not going to grow, let's say, in the same way that if you bought a freestanding house 20 years ago. Now, some of them are doing well, and some unit markets are doing extremely well. Like if you're buying a unit in Melbourne at the moment, you probably experience some good capital growth. But that's not the case for all of them. It doesn't take very much to drive around the streets of Sydney before you see units that are 5 years old, that all have concrete cancer, that are falling apart, that are being slapped with defects, where now people are paying special levies to get out of it. There is a huge risk, and we see them. Just go, and I challenge everyone who's listening to this podcast, go on realestate.com.au, pluck any random apartment in Parramatta and look at what it sold for 10 years ago. They've made 0%, probably less. They've probably actually gone backwards, especially when you factor in stamp and when you factor in, which they might not have actually paid back then, given it was a new build, so lucky. But especially when you factor in, say, a 1.5 to 2.5% selling cost, you're probably going to be negative. In terms of opportunity costs, you'd be way, way, way negative. You might as well just held the money in your bloody savings account, getting at 3% a year, But what it typically does is it would herd young Australians into these classes of property that would go backwards. Unless you're lucky enough to have been born in a hotspot suburb, which you can get a freestanding home, a lot of Aussies, in particular in Sydney, would be buying an oversupplied asset, perhaps also an underperforming newer asset, which is just going to cost you money. And we've been warning about the risk of the 5% deposit scheme for years, not to mention that you're going to be paying, a higher interest rate, 6.5% up to 7% interest rate on a 95% borrow. It's going to take you years and years and years and years to start chopping down that principal. All it takes is 1-2% hit, which is exactly what we've seen to our property market, which is actually going to put you in a very, very, very dangerous financial position. So you're going to have young Aussies out there that have been paying down their mortgage for years, barely touch the principal at all. And we have the government that made this decision make it worse by taking away capital gains tax discounts and stamp duty. And I'm not here to make a decision on that. I'm not here to say whether that move was good or bad, because I genuinely understand the need for housing affordability. I genuinely understand that. So I'm not here to say whether the capital gains tax changes or the negative gearing changes were good. What I am here to say, though, is it has probably pushed up to 300,000, I would say, Australians into negative equity. I know I've bought properties that would have definitely gone backwards, definitely. And I'm in a privileged position that I was able to do that. But so I'm not worried about myself or people in my shoes. I'm very worried about the young Aussies that were sold a lie. And you have decision makers that sit around the halls of our government that make these decisions that can't even define it. They do not understand the dangers of having debt worth more than the assets that back that debt. They are putting the lives of hundreds of thousands of people at risk, and they can't even define it.
Oh, look, I'm not gonna be as nice as you are.
You're gonna be okay.
I'm gonna be worse.
Yeah.
I think, yes, I understand the need for affordability, but I think they really forget that, yes, you can be a first-time buyer. And I'm all for my first-time buyer, you know me. Like, I'm all for people entering the market. But people don't want only one property. They want what previous generation had the capacity to do. They want to be able to build wealth and build a portfolio. So by by taking away negative gearing and capping capital gain, you're taking away what other generation and older generation had the capacity to do, and the reason why they were able to build wealth. Look at the government, yeah? How many are first-home buyers on that government? None.
Yeah.
They all have the grandfathering thingy.
Yeah.
So of course they see the benefits because they don't have to fork the cost.
So what I think you're referring to is capping the amount of negatively geared properties that you could have at 2. Essentially saying that young Australians could get access to the same tax benefits that older Australians had, and they basically kicked that and then grandfathered in everyone that already had them. And if you're a young Aussie that was looking to do it, keep the ladder out from under you, it's a huge shame, because you essentially, by doing that, it means that strategies like rent vesting I wouldn't say it's over. That would be financial advice, but it would have to be far more considered and deliberate in the way that you do it, because without necessarily those tax benefits, you know, you're just going to be paying so much in interest. You'd have to really buy in a capital growth area to make it work. But there is another video, and I'll just play it out loud a little bit.
And advice was, if you had negative gearing on 2 properties, and what people could do essentially is stack up, if they had 10 properties, stack up their debt onto the highest one, improve their deductions, and that it would distort the market towards basically the allocation of debt because of the nature of negative.
And that's, okay, so that's the Prime Minister. I'm sure everyone's very familiar with his voice, saying that the reason that they wouldn't allow everyone to get 2 each is because if you have these negatively geared properties and then you want to buy, say, a PPR in the future, you'd equity strip from your negatively geared properties to buy your PPOR, and you could essentially pay down more principal of your PPOR and have that as a tax deduction on your investment property. That is not how it works. That is not how it works. The tax deductibility of the loan is based on purpose. It's on the purpose of the loan. So if you equity strip from your investment property, but for the purpose of that money, of that taking out that equity was for buying your own principal place of residence, no, it's not a tax deduction. That is not tax deductible. The fact that you had the Prime Minister come out essentially explaining it, why they took that course of action that they did, and he got it fundamentally wrong. Again, this isn't to say that having more affordable housing is a bad thing. It is fundamentally a good thing to have more affordable housing. What worries me, though, is that now you've got the top decision maker in our nation saying that he decided on a course of action based on Treasury modelling, which was incorrect. That's not how tax works. And it makes me very concerned looking to the future about, you know, what's going to happen. Let's take this third, fourth order impacts of what can happen. The third, fourth order impacts are, okay, what happens when the value of the debt books or the loan books for our major financial services institutions, what happens when the value of those debts are higher than the values of Australian property? What if that happens? Well, then you'd have a pretty big devaluation of our major banks. That's really bad. You would have people's super funds devaluing. Well, that's really bad. You're already seeing reduced tax receipts. We're already expecting that tax receipts for our state governments are going to drop by like $12 billion a year. That's really, really bad. And so where are we going to make this up? You know, where as a nation are we going to make up a $12 billion shortfall? You know, you're not cutting NDIS. You've already bloody almost doubled the tax on trusts. You've already reduced the ability or severely limited the ability for people whose businesses are owned in trust to sell them and not cop a 47% tax rate. So you've done the tax raid, and we're still expecting that government revenues and receipts will decrease. It's a very dangerous position to be in, because our main thought leaders, the leaders who are choosing the policy directions of our nation, they couldn't define the basics. And it's appalling. You couldn't define the basics.
Yeah, well, it says a lot.
Anyway, that is all we have time for today. If anyone wants to reach out, Liam.Garman, Garman. And look, if you disagree with anything I said, that's totally fine. More than happy to have a spirited discussion via email, so please reach out. Emily, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, if you've got a story for us.
Yes, if you've got any scoops.
Yeah, send them my way. Emilie, so that's emilie.lauer, Lauer, at momentummedia.com.au. We can keep you anonymous.
Yes, you're very good at that. You didn't even name names of stuff that was online. So that is all we have time for today. We'll be back at the same time next week. But until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.